So we have been discussing what it says in the Haggadah about the different stages of the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We've been discussing the psukim, the verses from the Torah that talk about the Exodus. So, if you recall, we said that if you look in Parshas Kisavo in the book of Devarim, so it has there the story of the Bikurim. Bikurim is these first fruits that somebody would have. They would take a special mitzvah for them to bring it to the Beis Hamikdash and to take those first fruits and give them to the Kohen as a gift. If the oil is not coming out clearly, please let me know and I'll try something else. So anyway, these when the person would bring the first fruits as a gift to the Kohen, so he had a number of verses that he would have to say. It's called Mikra Bikurim, the recital of the Bikurim. So he would be sitting there with these first fruits, and he said, Arami Ovid Avi Vayer Mitzrayim Avayogar Shambim Seimad. He would say that Lavan tried to kill us, then we ended up in Mitzrayim, and while we were in Mitzrayim, so then Paro was very mean to us, and the Egyptians were bad to us. And then we started yesterday, and then we suffered, and they gave us hard work. And then what we got up to yesterday was the pasuk that says, "Vanitzak el Hashem Elokeinu Avosenu." We cried out to Hashem, the God of our fathers. Vayishma Hashem es kohen. When Hashem heard our voice, Vayar es anyenu, and he saw our suffering, v'es amalenu, and our hard work, v'es lachatzenu, and our oppression. So the last thing we discussed yesterday was this idea of Vanitzak el Hashem Elokeinu. Said that happened during Paro's. Well, it says that Paro died, and after Paro died, so Bnei Yisrael cried out to Hashem, and Hashem heard their cries. So we had a few explanations what it was that made Bnei Yisrael cry out. The last one that I said was actually the Egyptians had forbade them from ever crying. So as much as they wanted to cry, they weren't allowed to, and that prevented them from giving a true heartfelt prayer because they weren't allowed to cry. At Paro's funeral, all of Egypt was crying over the death of Paro, so they were able to cry also. People thought that they were crying because what a terrible tragedy, the Pharaoh had passed away, but in fact they were actually taking advantage of the opportunity to cry and to daven, and then finally Hashem heard our prayers. So we continue, and it says in Haggadah, "Vayishma Hashem es kol aleinu," and Hashem heard our voice. Like it says in the pasuk, "Vayishma Elokim es nakasam." Hashem heard their cries, their prayers. Vayizkor Elokim es briso es Avram es Yitzchak ve'es Yaakov. And Hashem remembered the covenant, and He remembered Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if you remember the way that it works, is we have this long verse from the story of the Bikurim from Parshas Kisavo, and then we break up phrase by phrase, and we say a drash, we say a homiletic explanation of what is going on, what it's referring to. So we're going step by step. So in the last one, when it said that we cried out, so the pasuk that it brought already said that our prayers went up to the heavens. So how come we need another proof, a different pasuk, to explain that Hashem heard our voice? What's up with that? So they say that it's coming to teach me, what does the verse say over here? Hashem remembered the covenant, you remembered Avram, you remembered Yitzchak, you remembered Yaakov. So what does that mean? That means that Hashem is judging us not based on our own merits, because for our own merits, we didn't really deserve the Exodus. We had become too much assimilated like the Egyptians. But because of the merits of our forefathers, because Hashem made a covenant, that is why Hashem actually went and now He decided to answer our prayers and to bring our salvation. Yes, Sima.
Hashem, he's not a human. He's a smart. Like we did with him, Hashem doesn't make mistakes. What, he wouldn't have remembered if we had cried out? Of course we cried out.
So Sima wants to, I'm not sure if you could hear or not, Sima wants to know why it says that Hashem remembered. What does it mean that Hashem remembered? So this is a famous idea that Hashem, in the Torah, He uses human terms to describe. Hashem uses human terms to describe His emotions. So for example, we say in Shema that when we go and we worship idols, so Hashem is going to become angry. What does mean Hashem is going to become angry? Angry, the whole word anger means a lack of control. Hashem doesn't have a lack of control. That whole idea is preposterous. So the answer is that correct. But if you would see the way that Hashem is acting, the words that we would use with our limited vocabulary is we would describe that as anger. So too over here also. When it says that Hashem remembered, so it doesn't mean to say that Hashem forgot, and now all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, the Jews, I knew I was supposed to take care of them. No, of course not. What it means to say is that Hashem is letting us suffer for 115 years, and I'm sure that people are sitting there and they're questioning, they're saying, where is God, where is God? And then all of a sudden, Hashem decided that the time has come. Perhaps because, like it says over here, we finally davened properly. So therefore, it's as if Hashem remembered. But of course, he didn't really remember. He never forgot in the first place. Hashem saw our suffering. Zo precious derech eretz. This is the fact that husbands and wives had to separate from each other. Like it says in the Pasuk, Hashem saw the Jews. Hashem knew. So what does that prove? Again, it says Hashem saw our suffering, and we're translating that what it means is that Hashem saw our suffering as that the husbands and wives were forced to not have relations anymore. So we bring a proof to that, and the proof that we bring to that is that it says Hashem saw the Jews, Hashem knew. So how does that prove the premise? Okay, again, let's go step by step. The original verse said Hashem saw our suffering. We're now saying that what the suffering that's referring to is the ability for husband and wife not to be able to live a normal life. And then we say, who says? So, I'll prove it to you. Because the Pasuk says, Hashem saw when he saw and Hashem knew. So, what is that? So what does that mean? So the explanation that I saw was that it's the type of thing that only God would know. So therefore, if it's the type of thing that only God would know, that must be what it's referring to, something that's totally private like that. So therefore, that's a hint that must be what it's referring to. Now, where do we find explicit anywhere that they separated? So you don't actually find it anywhere in the Psukim, and that's why we had to have this hint that Vayed Elokim Hashem knew. But there's a few ideas that they suggest what this is referring to. So number one, there's this medrash that says that after Paro made a decree that any Jewish baby boy that is born is going to be thrown into the Nile River. So Amram is Moshe's father. Moshe was not yet born, so he had two children. He had Aaron and his daughter Miriam, and Aaron is not yet, Moshe rather wasn't born yet, and Amram is the leader of the Jewish people, married to Yocheved, who's actually his aunt and the daughter of Levi. So Amram went and he divorced Yocheved, and he said, there's no reason for us to be married because if we have children, what's the point of bringing children into the world? They're just going to be drowned. So he divorced his wife. Amram, being the leader of the Jewish people, it sounds like he didn't actually issue an edict. He didn't tell anyone to follow what he did. But nevertheless, people said, if that's what the Jewish leader thinks we should do, then that's what we'll do. So everybody went and divorced their own wives. And there is a medrash that says that Yocheved actually got remarried during that time to somebody named Elitzaphan ben Parnas. So I don't know, it could be people that were never married, people that never had children, did stay married, but it seems that pretty much everybody went and got divorced. So perhaps that is what this pasuk over here is referring to when it says that there was a precious husband and wife were able to live together. They actually went and they actually got divorced. There's another explanation that says that no, the Egyptians. So that would be something which we did to ourselves, but we didn't really do it to ourselves. It was a result of what was going on. There's another explanation that says that the Egyptians wouldn't let us go home. They said, "What? You're going to go home. You're going to spend time with your wife, and then you're not going to wake up early in the morning. You're going to come late to work, and the commute there, the commute back. It's just it's going to waste too much time. So therefore, no, you have to stay in the field. So if they slept every night in the field, then obviously they weren't home to get together with their wife. This would conflict with other midrashim. So probably my guess is that over the 116 years of slavery, different time periods, different things went different ways. For example, there's the famous medrash that says that one of the ingredients of charosis is tapuach, an apple. So why an apple? So the verse in Shar Shirim says, Tachas tapuach orartich, which means I aroused you under the apple tree. And what's that referring to? That's referring to the fact that when the husbands would come home from work, they were basically ready to give up. They were done, and the last thing that they wanted to do was really interact with humans, period, but definitely not to interact with their wife. And the wives knew that even though they were also being beaten and also downtrodden, but nevertheless, it was up to them to step up to the plate, and it was up to them to do something to raise the spirits. So they said, what can we do? So before the husbands would come home, they would sit there and they would make themselves look really pretty, so they would try to be able to capture the husband's attention. So apparently this took place. They met them under the apple trees. So because of that, that is why we have apples as one of the ingredients in charoses. This is also the idea from a few weeks ago in the parsha, that the kior was the laver that the Kohanim used to wash their hands and feet before they did service in the Mishkan, and then later in the Beis Hamikdash, they had this special contraption made out of copper. Basically, it looked like an urn with a little faucet, and whatever come out, and they washed their hands and feet to purify themselves before they did the service. So that was made out of copper, and I guess this copper was mirrors. And the women actually donated the mirrors to the Mishkan. When the women donated the mirrors to the Mishkan, Moshe thought that it was a funny donation. Mirrors, I guess he felt, were inappropriate because it's the type of thing you use to make yourself beautiful, and why would that be the kind of thing that you would donate to the Mishkan? So therefore he wanted to refuse the donation. Hashem came to him. Hashem said, don't you know what those mirrors were used for? Those mirrors were used to cheer up the men when they came back from work and they were all depressed and downtrodden. So therefore, based on that, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu accepted it, and it actually served a very vital purpose in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and in the Beis Hamikdash, in our holy temple. So those are the two possibilities. I just wanted to add one other thing, and that is that it says that what ended up happening was going back to the first idea, which was that Amram, Moshe's father, went and he divorced his wife. So. And the reason for that was because he said, what's the point of bringing children into the world? They're just going to be drowned in the Nile River. So Amram's daughter, Miriam, went over to her father and gave him some harsh words, although probably done respectfully. And she said to him, your decree is worse than Paro's decree. Because Paro only made a decree against the males. In other words, a male that's born is going to be thrown into the Nile River. What about a female? She's going to live. So therefore, Paro only made a decree against the males. But you, dear dad, you're not bringing any children into the world, not males, not females. So therefore, what you did and causing all the Jews to follow you, that's actually worse than what Paro did. So Amram thought about it, and he decided that his young daughter was actually correct. And he went and he remarried his wife. When he remarried his wife, so then everybody went and followed, and all the Jews got remarried again. I one time suggested an idea, and I was talking to somebody this year, and he told me he thinks that that's the simple way of understanding, that it's not even anything novel on my part. So I'm not sure. But it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was born 3 months early. And the Mitzrayim, they had this baby police that were going around from door to door trying to find out if anybody had a baby that they were hiding, so they could take the baby and throw it into the Nile River. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was born 3 months early, his mother was able to hide him for 3 months. So the obvious question is okay, great, he was born 3 months early, but they have a baby inside the house. What difference does it make if the baby's born on time, or if the baby's born 3 months early? Obviously, they're going to be looking for babies, and they would discover the baby. You think that every time Moshe's mother Yocheved went to the OB, so then the OB had to go and share the record with the baby police. So then they knew, she's not due until Sivan. She's not due until the month of Sivan, so therefore we're going to leave her alone. We're going to leave her alone until then. Why do I say Sivan? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was born on the 7th of Adar. He was born 3 months early. So that means that approximately her due date, if he was born on the 7th of Adar, would be 7th of Nisan, 7th of Iyar, 7th of Sivan. So that seems very hard to believe that they went to OBs, right? But that they went to the doctor, then the doctor passed on the information. So how did it help that Moshe Rabbeinu was born 3 months early? So perhaps the answer is like this: that after Amram went and Amram divorced his wife, everybody went and followed. They divorced their wives. After Amram went and remarried his wife, everybody went and remarried their wives. Now, the police, whose job, I don't know how long exactly this divorce period was, but it was for quite a while. Let's even say a few months. So the baby police, when they heard that everybody got remarried, so they were enjoying vacation, because if no Jews are married to each other, then there's no work for them to do. They were enjoying vacation. When everybody got remarried, so then they said, okay, great, but we don't have to go back to work today. After all, the Jews say at the end of their Pesach Seder, who knows 9? I know 9. 9 are the months before a baby's born. It's the months of pregnancy. So therefore, we don't have to start now. We've got 9 months to go. So we can stay on vacation for another 9 months. After that, then it's possible that women have been pregnant this whole time and they give birth to a baby. So they stayed on vacation. So Moshe Rabbeinu being born 3 months early, assuming that Yocheved became pregnant right away, Moshe Rabbeinu being born 3 months early is what gave them the time, because the police weren't even looking. So that's what spared them those extra 3 months. Okay, the Haggadah continues. The Haggadah says, so what did it say? Cried out to Hashem. Hashem heard our voice. He saw our suffering and our hard work and our pressure. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to put everyone on mute just to avoid the background noise. If you have a question, though, please don't hesitate to take yourself off of mute and ask the question. So that's Amalenu, our hard work. So interestingly, the Haggadah defines, what does that mean, hard work? So it doesn't really make sense that it's referring to the slavery, because we already mentioned that in the previous pasuk. That was what we spoke about last night, that Hashem saw our suffering, He saw that we were being whipped, He saw that they gave us all this work to drive us crazy. So what is it referring to over here when it says our hard work? So it says the Haggadah, what is someone's hard work? A person's hardest work is their children. This is the children. So what's this? So in general, if you would define a person's goal in life, not his goal in life, but his greatest accomplishments in life, it's the raising of his children. Right? There used to be a radio host. I don't know if she's around anymore. Dr. Laura, who said that what was her, even though she's this multi-millionaire, very popular, very famous, and she's on the radio, what's her claim to fame? That I'm my son's mom. But anyways, so our hardest work is our children. So therefore, when it says that Hashem saw our hard work, what it means is He saw what was happening to our children. Like it says in the pasuk, that any boy that was born was thrown into the Nile River, and the girls were allowed to live. So Hashem saw what was happening to the boys, and He saw that the girls were being left to live. And some explain that what that means is that the girls were left to live because the Mitzrim wanted to have their way with the girls. So that means that it was no picnic for the girls either. So therefore, the boys were being killed. The girls were being groomed for other purposes. So Hashem saw what was going on. This is the pressure. I saw everything that the Egyptians are doing to you. Okay, fine. So we've now gone through a few of the verses from that recital that one says when he brings the first fruits. First, he talks about going down to Mitzrayim. Then he talks about and how we developed in Mitzrayim as a nation. Then he continues and he says that everything that the Mitzrayim did to us, how they made us suffer, they gave us hard work. Then how Hashem went and Hashem heard our prayers. And now, finally, Hashem took us out of Egypt. The Yad Chazakah, with a strong hand, with an outstretched arm, Uvemora Gadol, with great fear, Uvaosos, and signs of Mosum and wonders. So this is the last passage that we're going to quote from the recital of the first fruits. And the Haggadah is now going to go and it's going to explain each of those words. So Vayotzenu Hashem Mitzrayim, Hashem took us out of Egypt. It was not done by an angel. Saraf. Saraf is some other type of angel, Sarafim. Shaliach, not through an agent. Ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo v'atzmo. It was Hashem Himself with all of His glory. Now, how do we know that? So it says Vayotzenu Hashem Mitzrayim. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. But more than that, Shanema, we have a pasuk in Parshas Bo, the actual verses that talk about the Exodus, and it says like this: Hashem says, "Va'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim b'layla zeh." I will pass through the land of Mitzrayim on this night. Vihi Casey, and I will hit Kol Bechar Be'eretz Mitzrayim, every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim. Adam, from people, Vadbehim to animals, Uvechol Elohim Mitzrayim, with all of the gods of the Egyptians. Shvatim, I will make judgment. Ani Hashem, I am God. So that God that goes now, God explains. And I will pass through the land of Mitzrayim is Ani, I, Hashem himself, the Lamach, not an angel. The Hikesi, and I will hit every single firstborn is Ani a seraph, not a seraph angel. Uvechol Elohim Mitzrayim, Shvatim, I will make judgments is Ani, I Hashem, not an agent of mine. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, Anihu. It is me and no one else. So therefore, there's this idea that it was done. Sometimes Hashem sends an angel to do things for him. Sometimes Harbe Shuluchim Yesh Ramach, Hashem has many different agents to do different jobs for him. Right? Sometimes Hashem could send a person to help someone out. But in this case, it was Hashem himself. What does that mean exactly? Not sure, but it was Hashem said, "This is so important to me that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself." Now, there's a famous question that if you look in the verses that describe why we should put the blood on our doorposts. So if you remember the story, is Hashem tells us that we have to bring the korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, and they're going to go. And the story was that this Shabbos Hagadol. So the reason why Shabbos Hagadol is called the Great Shabbos, the big speech, but it's because of the great miracle that took place on that day. Now, interestingly enough, it is the only time that we celebrate or we remember not the date, but the day of the week that it occurred. It occurred on the 10th of Nisan. Which happened the year of the Exodus to be a Shabbos, which means we left Egypt on a Thursday. This year, once again, it's going to be it falls out there because Pesach is a Thursday, so it falls out exactly the same way this year. But it doesn't always work out that way, but we always remember it on Shabbos, because what happened, Hashem told us that we have to go, and we have to go get ourselves a sheep, which we're going to bring for the korban Pesach, and everybody marched through the streets with this lamb, and the Egyptians saw a whole parade of Jews walking with sheep, and they were infuriated because, after all, this was the Egyptian god, and they did not say anything. Maybe they said, "Oh my God," but that was it. They did not say anything. They did not protest, even though they were very upset at what we were doing, and this was considered to be a great miracle. Therefore, it's known as Shabbos Hagadol because of the great miracle that occurred that they didn't say anything. We then took those sheep and we had to tie them to the leg of a bed, and we had to inspect it to make sure that there was no blemish on it, because if it had any type of blemish, then it would be invalid to be brought as a sacrifice, and they had to keep it for 4 days. Here you can imagine what was going on when we left Mitzrayim. Basically, we went from a nation gracious that was to have children, that they did in Mitzrayim. You have this Mila that they actually did not keep in Mitzrayim, and they had not to eat from the Gid Hanashar, from the sciatic nerve on the back of an animal, to remember the story with Yaakov when he got hit over there, and that got damaged. I don't know if they kept that one or not, but other than that, they didn't really have any mitzvahs. Now they're not getting the Torah just yet. That's going to be in another 50 days. But they need to start getting training. So on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 15 days before Pesach, Hashem started to go and through Moshe give us a bunch of mitzvahs. So he starts telling Moshe that the Jews are going to have to make matzah. They're going to have a korban Pesach. And Moshe Rabbeinu, basically, it sounds like he called in the Jews to class, and every single day he gave them new details. So, for example, he tells them that you got to learn how to bake matzah. He gives them a whole training course in what it is to bake matzah. Do they have to clean their houses for chametz? So I think we mentioned that. That's a debate whether or not that first Pesach it was forbidden to own chametz or not. But let's say yeah. So they come home, they tell their wives, okay, we got to start cleaning. We got to go through the whole house, and we got to clean the house for chametz. Then they come home with this lamb, and the wife is like, "What are you doing?" So we have to tie it. We have to tie it to the leg of the bed. Oh, is this like one of those stories that then we're going to take it out and we're going to say how big the house is? No, we're leaving the house anyway very soon. We're going to have the Exodus. But we need to keep it here tied to the leg of the bed. So fine. So the father sits there and he's wiped out. He takes a nap. And all of a sudden he wakes up as the kids are like playing ride 'em horsey on top of this lamb that's inside the house. And he's like, oh my gosh, you're going to give it a blemish. You can't play with it. You can't touch it. You can't. And they're not allowed to do it. Then he gets all these details about how you shecht it. There's special mitzvah exactly how the lamb is roasted. And you actually have to put it on a spit And it says you're supposed to use the spit of a pomegranate tree. So everybody's running through all of Egypt trying to find a pomegranate tree. Then Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, "Oh, I forgot to mention that you're not allowed to eat from the Korban Pesach unless you've had a bris milah. So all the men need to get sacrificed. Need to get circumcised. So he has to go and he has to circumcise them. Right? Then that's it. They're sitting there on the couch for the next while. They're done. They can't help anymore. And they've got the matzah, because remember, that night they already ate matzah. They had a Seder in Mitzrayim. I don't know exactly how much of a Seder it was, but they had maror, and they had, because that was the mitzvah. The mitzvah very clearly says that night they ate matzah, maror, and the Korban Pesach. Now, whether they ate it all together or each one separately, but they ate that night in Egypt. So they sacrificed the lamb, and then Hashem says to them, "You're going to take the blood and you're going to put it on the doorposts and on the lintel, and when you do that, you will not allow the destroyer to come into your home." Now, the problem with this is that we make a very big point in the Haggadah of saying, but after everything is said and done, this is only a drash. This is not the simple understanding, right? We have here a drash that says that it is Hashem himself, and he's not sending any agent, he's not sending any angel, it is Hashem himself. But what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, put the blood on your doorpost to prevent the destroyer, the mashchus, from coming into your home. So what in the world does that mean? In other words, what it sounds like from the simple understanding of the psukim is that Hashem is going to go from house to house. He's going to kill every firstborn. He's going to pass over the Jewish homes, right? And if you have the blood on your doorpost, so then the destroyer won't come in. What do you mean the destroyer won't come in? The destroyer has nothing to do with this. This is all taking place by Hashem himself. So one answer is that, you know what, you're right. It could be that the entire death of the firstborn was done by Hashem himself. But he had a bunch of destroying angels of death, that escorted him on his trip. So when he was going from house to house, it was Hashem doing it, but he had these other these other angels that were with him. So the concern was that perhaps once they're out and about, they might go and attack the Jews also. So the protection is not from Hashem. You don't need to protect yourself from Hashem. Hashem knows that you're a Jewish home. So the protection is from those other angels that are escorting Hashem. The Rabinowitz says that actually it doesn't mean the angel of death, this destroyer, but it just means the Egyptians. That the Egyptians, they might try to destroy you. But if you put the blood on, that'll be a safeguard, that'll protect you from the Egyptians, that the Egyptians will not be able to come into your homes and to be able to do anything bad to you. The Vilna Gaon has an interesting explanation. He says that that night there was a special protection, as it's called the Leil Shimur, a night of protection, and that protection protected us, that no Jew is going to die that night. But what happens if a Jew was born 72 years ago, 122 years ago, whatever the case may be, and it was decided that this night, Pesach night, is going to be the night that he's going to die? So then, really, nothing to do with anything. That's just the time that was allotted for him in this world. So that should be when he will die. Says the Vilna Gaon, not in this case. That's what the pasuk is telling me. If you go and you take the blood and you put it on your doorpost, that will keep the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, away from you, and he won't be able to do anything to you, and you will not die. When will you die? I don't know. A different day. Okay, continues the Haggadah, and it says that, so Hashem says, it says, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, biyad chazak, with a strong hand. So what is this strong hand referring to? So interestingly, the Haggadah says it's referring specifically to Dever. Dever is the fifth plague. It's the pestilence, the death to animals. Now, why would we mention specifically, out of all the plagues, why would we mention that one specifically? Well, that's what fits in, because it says a strong hand. And the pasuk that refers to that plague says, Hinei yad Hashem hoya b'miknecha asher basoda. What is going to be killing all of these animals that are in the field? The susim, the horses, the chamorim, the donkeys, the gemalim, the camels, the bakar, the tzon, all the cattle, the sheep. It's going to be dever kavod ma'od, a very strong plague of pestilence, of death to these animals. So what is going to be bringing that out? So the pasuk said, Yad Hashem, the hand of Hashem. So this pasuk refers to our Exodus and says Hashem took us out, Biyad Chazaka, with a strong hand. So what's the strong hand referring to? From all the plagues, we only have one plague that it mentions specifically, the hand of Hashem. And that plague is the plague of Dever. So if that plague is the plague of Dever, it must be referring to that. Now, obviously, that begs the question, like, okay, well, why would that get special mention? Right? You would think other plagues would get special mention. It suggests that before we just mentioned the death of the firstborn, and now we're mentioning Dever. Dever is the fifth plague. So perhaps you could split the plagues into like two groups, the first five and the second five. So Makas Bechoros includes the whole second five, and Dever includes the whole first five. And that's what we're talking about over here. All right. Not the best answer I ever heard. I did see an answer tonight that suggested that that Dever means death. So maybe it's referring to so it's true that the verse that we're bringing is referring to the death of animals, but the idea that we're trying to pull out of there is that we're talking about death, period. And every plague had some death that went along with it. I mean, think about, I don't know, like Sfardeya. So, like, yeah, it must have been a nightmare for them to have frogs here, frogs there, frogs jumping everywhere. But, like, after everything was said and done, was that it? Or, like, the wild animals. So were the wild animals just to, like, drive them crazy and make them run into their closets and lock the door behind them? Or, no, actually, many Egyptians died during those plagues. So it sounds like each and every plague came along with a number of fatalities. They died from the plague. Not everyone, obviously, but that was part of it. It wasn't just that it was like uncomfortable to not have water to drink. It actually led to some deaths also. So they had, I guess it would only be an epidemic. But they had this going on, and it was causing death. So therefore, when it says the strong hand of Hashem, that is referring to the death that came along with each and every plague. Like the pasuk mentions specifically the death of animals, that refers to the hand of Hashem. Now, Zra Netuya, with an outstretched arm. What is the outstretched arm of Hashem referring to? Zah Cherev. So this is Hashem's arm acting like a sword. Like it says in the pasuk, "V'charbo shalufa biyado nituya al Yerushalayim." So we have this word nituya, outstretched, and it refers to a pasuk that mentions it mentions a sword. It was a vision that David HaMelech saw of an angel, and he has a sword that's outstretched. So again, you have outstretched. So therefore, because over there it's referring to a sword that's in an outstretched arm, I guess over here also it's referring to Hashem's outstretched arm, sort of like a sword. What does a sword mean? A sword means to attack, to kill. So it's showing that Hashem went, Hashem attacked, Hashem killed. A number of years ago already, Rabbi Todd Berman was visiting Jacksonville. So he taught my class. So he told them that he went to the British Museum and they have a statue from Egypt, which I believe is supposed to be many thousands of years old, and they believe that it's Pharaoh Ramses, or the second, I think, who was the according to the tradition, he was the Paro that was the Paro back then. Now that part is missing, but they believe that there was this humongous statue, and it was there at the entrance to Egypt, and he was sitting there with this arm that was like totally outstretched, like really, really sticking out. Then it was a sign of might, a sign of power. So he stared at it and he said, oh my gosh, like everybody is always trying to figure out what is the symbolism that we keep on reading about strong hand, outstretched arm. What does outstretched arm mean? What is that? What is that symbolism? So he said, oh, but when you see the statue, when you see the statue, so that shows you that was Paro's show of might. The way that he tried to show his strength was with that statue, with the arm stretching all the way out. So therefore, Hashem said, you think that you're strong? Let me show you. I'll show you what an outstretched arm looks like. So he told my class that he went back to his hosts where he was staying in England, and he told them his insight. And they said, yeah, anyone that goes to the museum comes up with that. Everyone in England knows that. I was like, I've never been to the museum before. For me, it was a new idea. So perhaps that's what it's referring to, this outstretched arm. It says that when we wear tefillin is supposed to remind us of the outstretched arm of Hashem. So when he went and he saved us from Egypt. So my father suggested that, what's the connection? Perhaps because in order to put on tefillin, we have to take our arm and we have to stretch it out. Can't get all on the camera. We have to stretch out our arm to then go and put on the tefillin. So perhaps because we're going and stretching out our arm, that's why the tefillin is what reminds us of Hashem. Yes, Simon?
Why does it only talk about one Paro the whole time or whatever, I would think that if we were in Egypt for a way over 100 years, like wouldn't there have been a different party? If he would have seen the word bad or whatever, like he would have at least maybe made us work a little bit less, or make us do something that he thought was reasonable work for him that helped him.
Was it the same power or was it not the same power? So we spoke about this a little bit yesterday. Some people say that it was the same power the whole time. Some people say that it wasn't. So maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Now, just a little bit more. We're finally up to the. We're finally getting up to the 10 plagues. With great fear, this refers to the being revealed of the Shechina. Like it says in the pasuk, Oh Hanisa Elo Elokim was there ever any other God that attempted to take out one nation from the midst of another nation? That with all the fanfare, all the pomp and ceremony that came along with our Exodus, did any other God ever try to attempt that, like I, Hashem, did for you? Now, I mentioned there, but it says, did any other God try to do this, like I tried to do this? And the pasuk says, like with signs, with wonders. So now the Haggadah is going to explain each one of those. Uva also with signs, Zehamat. This refers to the stick of Moshe Rabbeinu. Like the pasuk says, this stick, because you're going to use this stick to be able to perform all of the makos, all of the plagues are going to come through your stick. Uvimosum, and with wonders. Zahadam. This is referring to blood. Like the pasuk says, now this one's a little bit funny. Let's just explain this, and this will finish. There's a pasuk in, I believe it's in Yoel. Yeah, Yoel is in Treyasar, which is the last book of Navi, is split into 12 little books. Like, for example, that's where Yonah is found. And there's a book called Yoel, and it's talking about this destruction that Hashem says he's going to do. And Hashem says that I'm going to make wonders in the heavens, wonders in the earth. And it's not referring to Egypt at all. And there's going to be blood, and there's going to be fire, and there's going to be pillars of smoke. What does that have to do with anything? So just like everything that we've been doing, it's just a drash. We want to say that when the pasuk mentioned that Hashem did mofsim, Hashem did wonders, so those wonders refer specifically to blood. Why? Because we have another pasuk. That uses that word mofsim, that uses that word wonders, and in the same pasuk it says wonders and it says dam, it says blood. So obviously, in our pasuk, when it mentions wonders in Egypt, that's also referring to blood. Which blood, of course, that would be the plague of blood, makas dam. So those wonders are referring specifically to that. Okay, fine. So that's all fine and good. In other words, just to explain. We have in the pasuk that says that Hashem brought wonders in Egypt. So wonders, okay, we could figure out many things what they are. But we're saying that the drash is that it's referring specifically to dam, specifically to blood. Why? Because I have a pasuk. The pasuk mentions blood, mentions wonders, a totally separate pasuk, nothing to do with Egypt. It mentions wonders and it mentions blood. So if those wonders are referring to blood, then our wonders are referring to blood. Okay, fine. That fits in with everything that we've been doing until now. That's nothing different. The only thing which is a little bit funny is that our custom is that the same way that we take out from the cup of wine when we do the 10 plagues, we also do that now over here also, when we say dam va'esh v'simras Hashem. But this has nothing to do with the plagues in Egypt. So why would we take out from our wine now when this has nothing to do with the plagues? And the answer is I don't know. It's a strong question. Some people, they try to go and they try to make some connection, and they say, well, okay, fine, maybe we'll have to find a case where there was blood and there was pillars of smoke in Egypt. That could be, but that's not what the pasuk is referring to. We're just using the pasuk to pull out what the word wonders is referring to. But nevertheless, this is the first of the 16 times that we're going to take out of our cup, either with our pinky or pouring, whatever your custom is, and that's that. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful night. Yes, Simon.